All right, bot fans, welcome to another edition of Red Square, Blue Square. I'm your host, Richard Tiemann, and this is your go-to for BattleBots recap and reaction. This is episode number 12. We've done a dozen of these, but yet my bracket is still just as busted as it was after the completion of the round of 32. And if it was still semi-intact, it was even more completely shattered tonight, and every pun intended. So we have a lot to discuss. We only have one more episode of BattleBots left. It's a very sad day. That means only one more episode of Red Square Blue Square left. So I'm bringing out the big guns. Very excited about tonight. But first, if you have not watched this episode, tell them, John.
Warning, this episode is full of spoilers, so you've been warned.
All right, you heard him. So let's meet tonight's guest in the Red Square. He is the captain of the bot that has mastered the art of the suplex. So if it was a WWE wrestler, it could literally be any of them. Give it up for Craig Danby of Slammo. Welcome, Craig. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
Doing great, man. I love the bot. We're going to talk a lot about it here in just a minute. But in the Blue Square, oh, man, he is a bad man, and he's been kind of made the villain a little bit inadvertently, but we just love him, really. It is the captain of Sawblaze, Jameson Go. Welcome, Jameson. How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
Excellent. So, Craig, J-Mo, we had another round, and I know it's kind of different perspectives for you guys because, J-Mo, you're in it. And then Craig, you were at first. And so let's go ahead and talk about, the theme this season has been a little bit of who's the villain. And they always try to do this every season. It's like production picks out who it wants to try to twist and turn into their villain. And Ray Billings is kind of more embraced, like, yeah, whatever, I'll be the villain if you need me to. But J-Mo, they tried to make you it one year, and it didn't last very long. And I think now everybody just loves you and knows that you're not a person to mess with. But what was that? I think I remember a post from you or a tweet about, oh, so that's how I'm going to be this season. Like, how do you feel looking back at those earlier years?
Oh man, it's like angsty teenage years in a way. You first start off, you have to make a big name for yourself. So not necessarily saying that you have to go do some really crazy stuff and be someone that you're not, but that first fight in particular, we knew it was going to be a televised event. It was against my buddy Charles, and we have a long history together. So amongst that long history is several years of friendship, which involves, of course, what you do to your friends is you make fun of them and you egg them on. So in my way is to A, spice things up a little bit, but B, also sort of egg him on so he comes back next year with a better bot and everything like that.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to watch play out on television. I was like, I don't think that's really how he is. And then, of course, I met you, and I'm like, that's not how he is at all. Like, J-Mo's a great guy. And so this season, Jake Ewert is like, you know what? You don't have to paint me a certain way. I don't have to embrace it and be like, whatever. Like, I'm going to be your villain. Okay. Like from day one, this is how I'm going to be. And I told John Schultz last week, I said, BattleBots needs that. So then they're not having to pick and choose, like, who do we want to edit and twist and turn this person into? It's like, if their job is done and the villain is there, like, okay, that's we can focus on this other stuff now. But Jen Herkenroder of Hijinks also had a great point a few episodes ago where she said it doesn't matter how many fights you have. At some point, you're going to have the red haze and the blinders on, and you're going to say or do something that is completely out of character from you and basically become the villain for however long. And Craig, that like happened to you. And so how do you feel, looking back and watching how it actually played out on TV and now after? I'm sure there was probably a lot of people speaking up on the internet.
So when I did Robot Wars back in England, I was asked in the interview process, hey, did you want to be the villain? So I did a pantomime villain, and I really went for it, and they hated me. That was intense. To the point where I had a robot that looked like a fox, and my local newspaper put my address in a news article, and somebody left a dead fox on my car. So it got pretty intense. And to get a bit of blowback from telling the Black Dragon guys to back off, yeah, okay, fair enough. Got a little bit personal, but people on the internet do, and that's fine. I just remember at the time I was just really furious with them. There's a bit more to it than just me just going, screw you guys, and but it was a nothing moment in reality. That's how I remember it. And I was out back talking with the Black Dragon guys after the fight, like nothing had happened. And for it to become what it became, this like 2-3 weeks ago, I wasn't really expecting it. So yeah.
Thankfully, you guys have such a tight-knit community and a great BattleBots family that they will come to your guys' aid. And I'm glad to see that that's still fully intact, especially after a season where I'm sure, with no fans and a lot of free time, where you guys are socially distanced, but yet, you're still going through all the motions. It was probably even more relevant this year, right, JMO?
Yeah, speaking of that tight-knit community, I mean, everyone who's been doing fighting robots for so long, we all understand that feeling. It's happened to me too, and it took absolutely every bit of self-control in my body to not say anything. It just sucks. You just kind of have to take it. We'll stand up for each other. If anybody wants to pick on Danby, I'll be there. Like it's happened to me too. Like we're together in this, man. We know how it feels.
Craig, overall, I thought you had a great season. It looks like you finally found a bot to kind of call your own. Slammo was very fun to watch from a fan's perspective. You've gone through several different changes as a whole. Why did you pick this one, and what's made you kind of stick with it?
The reason I picked this one was because I was in the pits in 2019 with Foxtrot, and after it had its second fight, which was Mammoth, Aaron, the producer, came up to me and he's like, do a control bot, do like a complete control. We're missing one of those. And I was like, all right. So I just went and started drawing something as I had my computer with me, and I just started drawing. And about 2 hours later, I was like, Aaron, is this what you want? Yeah, build it. And so I was like, oh, okay. So that didn't mean I was definitely going to be coming back. I've had 2 years where I sucked ass, quite frankly. I was in the pits in 2019, pitted next to Bombshell. I love the Bombshell guys. And at the end of the season, they're like, we may be not coming back next year, but we still want to come back. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, well, I need a team. Come with me. And we met up in Orlando for Robot Ruckus. And it was all my own work at Ruckus. And it wasn't great, but it won 2, lost 1. It was pretty great for me. It was a really good outing. And then Randy and Jason from Bombshell opened it up, took one look at it. I was like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And they would speak to somebody else like Rob Masick, and Rob Masick would go, this is what we do in Bite Force, this is what we do in Bite Force, and we also do this. And I was like, right, I want to do all of those things. And if you'd have told me at the beginning of the season that I was going to end up in the top 32 with a positive win record, and my only losses to be bots that make top 32, sorry, top 16, I'd have taken it. I do like this robot. I don't know why we are sticking with it. I really want to do a vertical spinner, but it won't get in because everybody's got them. Thanks, JMO.
No, resist.
I think the suplex is all right. It's a complicated mechanism that I'd like to simplify as much as I can, but it is what it is, and it's a cool robot. It'll look a bit different, but
Let's talk about this card tonight. So we are down to 8, but first we had to have 16 remaining after the opening round. A lot of brackets busted, mine included. Tonight it didn't get any easier on those that were left standing, but we did start off the night with one of few knockouts. So there were 8 fights, 2 were knockout. 6 went to decision, some kind of decision, be it split or unanimous. First time all season that majority of the fights were decision, which I think just goes to show the field of competition left before tonight and now moving forward. But JMO, you were the opening fight, you against Witch Doctor, a matchup that a lot of us were looking forward to potentially getting. It would probably come in the postseason. But you guys get the knockout against Witch Doctor. How fun was that fight for you?
Oh, that was an incredible fight for us. Like I said in the post-fight interview, that fight was special to us, not just because it's another win to advance in the tournament, but also because the 2019 Witch Doctor loss for us was like the defining moment, which outlined all the changes that we wanted to make. That was the fight that taught us the most stuff. Like the Tombstone fight, we had a connector pop loose, was let's say the beginning of the snowball. And then there's some mechanical things, but we had the most things fail in the Witch Doctor fight. And so we looked back at that one many, many, many times and found out what exactly we need to change, and to see each one of them working as it was supposed to. I think we had a good chance in 2019, but because of those things, it kept us from really keeping the front down, from implementing the weapon, maintaining control, and those things working in this fight was absolutely, we were so happy. I mean, and we came up with the win. The knockout, it was barely a knockout. But, you can't have a better feeling that it's like the things that we changed worked. That's an engineer's dream.
Yeah, it was called the knockout with 1 second left on the 3-minute fight clock, which I wanted to watch back and see, is John counting in sync with the actual clock, or did he speed up or slow? Like, I want to know if that's a thing that they have to watch, or if that's left to, you count at your own pace, but make sure that it's at least, consistent. I don't know if they talk to you guys at all about that.
Well, technically it says 10 counts. Necessarily 10 seconds. They're approximately seconds.
That's true.
If I were to watch the TV airing tonight and then try to match it exactly with the clock, I think that the final second may have been a hair fast, but would it have still gone our way? Many people are thinking so.
I will agree with that. Yeah, I think it would have gone your guys' way also. And so have a fight that ends in knockout, but there's 1 second to spare technically, so that one was just not gonna go to decision apparently. But then the next fight, this I talked about a few episodes ago, in my opinion is the most heartbreaking knockout that anyone can experience, but at the same time it's why we love this sport of BattleBots, because you have uppercut versus ribot, and it should be heavily favored uppercut. And starting out, it looked like it was all uppercut, and then just one thing happens, and now all of a sudden there's a 10 count, but it's for uppercut, not ribot, and you're like, what is happening? Like, what just happened? And the momentum swings in this sport can just be crazy like that. Craig, you've watched these guys all season, and now you're seeing them compete, and like, does this kind of thing still shock even someone like you as a veteran?
No. Yes. Well, we were pitted next to uppercut, so we felt really bad seeing them get counted out like that. But that is the game. They should have killed Ribot in reality, I think, but they didn't. And Ribot's a hardy robot. It's very well engineered inside. A little boring on the outside, apart from the froggy bits, but it's a very hardy robot, and it can take a hit. And it was still moving, and uppercut wasn't.
And JMO, you're an aggressor a lot of the times with saw blades. Is that kind of knockout something that lingers in the back of your mind, or can you just not let that be a thought when you're getting ready for a match?
Yeah, when you get ready for a fight, and the way you build the robot, you kind of have to drive it with the belief that it's going to work. If there's any component which you're really not quite sure about, it's probably going to fail, or you're going to drive like you don't believe in the machine. So that preparation, the testing, everything that goes into it really plays into it. So if you're aggressive, most cases than not, the driver is basically saying with that language, I believe my machine can win.
Yeah, it was crazy to watch. And I remember Ribot last year. I was down there and I saw them go out. And of course, Leanne spoke very highly of them. She's like, I know this team, they're gonna have some growing pains, but they're gonna get it figured out. And I was like, okay. And then I saw the bot and I was like, well, that's cute. And now, a year later, you look at it, you're just like, that's not cute. That's not a bot that I want to face. Like they've been very aggressive in this tournament, which is what you need. You look at the remaining field, and I think that there's a lot of aggression in this. The next fight, that would be the first of a series of several decisions, was Tantrum over Bloodsport. This one split decision. This one, I understand why Tantrum, but I honestly couldn't tell you which way I would have scored it. Craig, for you watching this, which way do you think it should have gone? And did it go the way you think it should have?
It went the way I thought it was going to go. I think I scored it kind of split all the way along, but all in favor of Tantrum. I would have given it to Aaron in that respect. So yeah, it's a great robot. It's extremely well driven. I've seen what they were doing in China, and they were in control. Damage is kind of even. It was the bits falling off of Bloodsport towards the very end of the fight as well, which kind of tipped it in Tantrum's favor. It's they're both extremely well engineered, well designed, well built machines. So whoever went through was a winner. Whoever moved on at this point is a contender.
Tantrum looks really solid right now. Bloodsport though was the 2 seed. Last week, we had the number 3 in Copperhead exit, and it still stings to say it out loud since that was my pick for the winner. And then we had Hydra advance, and then, of course, Uppercut advance, but now Uppercut makes an exit as well. So there are 4 top seeds and only 1 remains. Would they stay that way? But before we get to that fight, Jameson, we're talking about the 2 bots going up against each other, which if you win, this is going to be who you have to face next. Everybody's talking about Bloodsport, not a whole lot paying attention to Tantrum. So what was your reaction? And did you find this out in the way that we did? In other words, you advance and then you find out who your opponent was.
Right. We fought before they did. So by the time that they fought, we were maybe in the cool-off tent or charging the batteries or having a good old cheer with the team. We only found out later because we're good friends with Bloodsport. We're actually neighbors back here in Boston. We share a pit space or a build space. So we asked them how the fight went. We found out the result back then. And I wouldn't say there's any amount of, panic or excitement necessarily, where I think the team was somewhat like, okay.
But, you're a vet, your bot's solid. So I'm sure that the second you found out, you guys were hard at work. And that brings us to the Midway Major, as they call it. I thought this could have easily been the main event, both going into tonight's episode and then after the fight. Hydra versus Gigabyte. I mean, it had all the ingredients for a great fight, and it certainly played out that way. This one went to unanimous decision in favor of Hydra. So out of the 4 top seeds, 1 remains, and it is the number 1 seed. So all those Jake Ewert haters have another week, 1 more episode to feel the way that they do. But great strategy against Gigabyte, at least I believe that was his strategy. I don't know how much luck goes into it, but there was a few shots that you were kind of worried about. Oh, is this going to be another uppercut count out where everything was going right and now it's completely wrong? Craig, when you saw this fight and you're thinking a flipper versus a shell spinner, who do you normally give the advantage to before the fight starts?
It always depends on the 2 robots in the arena, but I would say that a flipper wins that one. But it goes either way. Sometimes it does depend on the bot. Biohazard didn't handle Gigabyte, Megabyte too well, but I really love Hydra. I love it so much. Inside that robot is engineering porn. It's fantastic. And I know he gets a lot of hate, but I really love Jake, and I really love him as the bad guy. And I think he's wonderful to talk to because he's quite frankly a little bit of a dick, but I absolutely love that about him. if it doesn't win this year, it's going to win next year. And if it doesn't win next year, it'll win the year after. It's going to be a champion bot.
Hydra does get the win, like I said, by unanimous decision, not split decision. So they will move on. Gigabyte goes back to see what kind of tweaks they can make. And then the next fight, Black Dragon and Tombstone. This is another one I thought going in could be the main event. And when I saw where it was, after the Hydra fight, I was like, okay, so either Tombstone wins convincingly or something goes wrong in this fight, and then it goes to decision. And that's exactly what happens. So you have Black Dragon winning by unanimous decision. But Ray Billings had a really rough qualifying round or regular season, however you want to put it. So Jameson, are you in the position where you can like almost give Ray advice for like what he should do? Or do we just chalk this up to an off year for Ray Billings and Tombstone?
I would probably chalk it up to an off year. I don't know if I am in a position to give Ray advice, simply because I don't exactly know what went wrong with this robot. I mean, he said it before on public forum and everything. His whole philosophy for it is to go hard on the damage side, the weapon side. And so if that's what you want, then that's what you're designed for. And who am I to say differently? Tombstone has that rep, and I think you should keep it that way. I did joke with him a little bit about trying to maybe join the brushless hipsters a little bit on his drive, maybe get some weight for some structure somewhere else. You be able to maintain that deadly weapon system that he's got, but it's still a phenomenal robot. Sometimes you just get a tough break.
It was still fun to see Ray and their advance past the first round, but Black Dragon will now face Ribot. So these are two really hot bots right now, two great teams. And they're both very aggressive. When you look at this matchup on paper, is there one that jumps out to you, JMO, as the obvious favorite, or even one that you kind of lean towards?
Well, just looking at these two bots, I do think that Ribot tends to be the more aggressive, faster robot. And it really kind of depends on what they do for their front end setups. I don't know exactly. Well, I do know, but I won't say what Ribot chooses to use in their fight. Will heavily dictate what Black Dragon decides to use for their wedge and their weapon. They have the egg beater and they have the discs. So, that is to be seen. I think whoever can stay on their wheels and keep their weapons spinning the longest will probably come out. It's going to be a real long, probably 3-minute fight with those two.
I certainly hope so. I love that. I mean, I'm not a fan of decisions, but if you can get a Sawblaze over Witch Doctor 1 second to spare knockout, I think that's probably about as perfect of a matchup as you can get in the world of combat robotics. I bet you agree. Craig, who do you have is who would be in they have the advantage category between these two?
Well, having just lost to Black Dragon, the Brazilian guys, they have a lot of competitions. And they tend to you'll have a team that does a drum spinner in Rio Bots, and you'll have a team that does a vert spinner in the Warrior team. And they stick to that at anything from 150 grams all the way up to 250 pounds, and every single increment in between. And it's just a variant of the same bot. So they know exactly how to handle the robot. Driving is a huge part of this. It's almost as big as the engineering side of things. And David's a great driver as well. No disrespect to him, but I really, really rate the Black Dragon guys. Their ability to turn the robot around when it's damaged, their ability to look at a robot and go, I need this little bit here, this little bit here. I was in the queue behind them trying to get my robot fixed for the bounty hunters, and they were welding on these tiny, tiny little triangles to reinforce their wedge for Tombstone. And I'm like, are you going to be done in a minute? Because I've got a lot to do thanks to you. Can you get a move on?
Tell me back off.
I tried that. It didn't work. I would give it slightly to Black Dragon. I think they're slightly more durable. And I think, and no disrespect, I think it's slightly better driven.
Then Whiplash took on Valkyrie. This one, unanimous decision for Maddie Vasquez. And man, how good of a driver is he? I'd say competing this year, not just overall in the history of BattleBots, but competing this year, top 3 drivers have got to be Matty V, Jake Ewert, and then probably you, Jameson. I mean, the driving has been phenomenal for these 3, and it shows clearly. But Whiplash, dangerous bot. Valkyrie, I felt very bad for Leanne because I know she was so passionate about this bot and had such high hopes for it this season. But another classic and another great fight. But I don't know who anybody would be more scared of to take on, Valkyrie or Whiplash, because they're probably whoever's up next is sweating bullets for both of them. JMO, what about you? Is they're friends of yours.
Oh, definitely. Both teams are awesome. Valkyrie, of course, local buddies, and Whiplash, we're pit buddies. We talk all the time. I mean, I don't know. If you ask me, I'll fight Whiplash again. I'm sure they'd like that too. They're actually, Jeff was telling me, he's like, my dream, I had this dream last night where we went all the way and then you went all the way on the other side and we fought again in the finals, but this time we beat you. Wow, this fight was incredible. And Valkyrie is an absolute beast this season. When that disc gets up to speed and it either ricochets, just like Danby was talking about the Gigabyte fight, ricocheting off the walls, Valkyrie does the same thing. It's incredible. But Matt, he has all the guts on that guy to even think about picking up a spinning Valkyrie like that and have it hover in the air. I wouldn't touch that, man. The arm would be, if that was our arm, it would probably get cleaved.
The best thing about the whole Whiplash team is the unsung hero that is Debbie, the mum. She's amazing. She's wonderful, and they all owe her everything because it's all on her. She's the one that's like getting food and telling them what to do and making them sleep and making them do this. And it's like she's the real hero. So shout out to Debbie.
Yeah, I've talked with Debbie before. I've even interviewed her in the pit. She is absolutely 100% fan and team member for Whiplash. She is like one of the best pit moms in every sense of the word down there. So props to Debbie. Good job. Shatter over Mammoth by split decision. Did not see that coming, but it was the most intriguing matchup going into this episode that we talked about last week. We're like, how does this even go? Like, what even happens? But then what Zach said for Shatter to do happened eventually once the drive chain or the weapon chain for Mammoth came off. But Craig, when you see a hammer bot, the only one left in it, I mean, does that make you giddy as far as the hope for the sport and the variety of different weapons and styles?
I think Shatter is the best hammer bot in the world, bar none. I don't think there's anybody that comes close to Shatter. It definitely is the hardest hitting. It is the best driven. I think it's probably the best armored. I think it's almost at the pinnacle of what a hammer bot should be. And the fact that it's got the Mechanum drive and you can keep it pointed wherever he needs to. I didn't think it would work when I first saw Mega Melvin, which was the original version of Shatter. I didn't think it would. I thought, oh, that's a gimmick. It's not gonna. But it really, really is. And a year later, it's like, I need Mechanum wheels. I need drive, 4 motors and drive everywhere so I can Mechanum drive. And I tried it. I actually did. I bought the Mechanum wheels and I tried it, and I just couldn't get it to work anywhere close to how he does. So I have nothing but respect for Adam and his ability. It's the best hammerbot.
Yeah, it was really impressive to watch, and the fight against Mammoth looks so intriguing, and then you're watching, you're like, wow, okay, so this is the direction it's going to go. And props again to Mammoth and Ricky Willems. I thought it was a great season for Mammoth, a lot of entertainment value. But I do worry though, because if you tweak Mammoth and maybe make it smaller, in my mind, it would still be Mammoth, but there's got to be something they can do to give themselves a little bit more protection in that battle box, because every time they lose, it's because they lose that chain or they suffer damage to somewhere that's just not protected. Jameson, like in your mind, what's the best route for them to go to make an improved Mammoth for next season?
I think maybe we need to see more action from Mammoth in general, just to get an idea of where its weaknesses are. You did point out some ways that it did fail. I think that their team has a lot of ideas on how they can address that, especially if they keep that chain on. I think that that changes how the fight goes automatically. Say in the beginning of that fight, when I was watching it, I was thinking, holy crap, Mammoth might have this. They were blocking Shatter's arm. They were kicking it around, and Shatter, even with those magnets, an extra 100 pounds or so of downforce, which helps with that hammer, was still really tossing bots. If they keep that chain on, I mean, the size helps the design. Can't make it smaller. You want to make it smaller so you can get more weight to put armor somewhere else. But they're making, if you look at their social media, intelligent use of compliant energy absorbing materials instead of something that's necessarily hard and heavy, like all the AR steels. I think that's going to be their key to victory, is figuring out where to use it, how much to use it, and keeping that chain on. They're going to be a fan favorite the next one, and probably pull up a whole lot more upsets.
I would love to see it. I really do. Their fight with Huge was very entertaining. John Schultz said, "I love that fight. I'd love to do it again." So I don't want to ever take away from somebody and what their bot's identity is. Yeah, that's why I love that Kraken has really improved what Kraken is to make it a competitive bot. And JMO, obviously, you had to face him, and you guys went the distance for 3 minutes, and that was a lot of fun to watch. And now we have Mammoth and some other bots that are trying something a little different, but you don't want them to lose so much of their identity that now they're a completely different bot. So I think that there's some ways that they can improve, and that's what we hope for every team going from one season to the next that didn't finish, holding the giant nut above their head. But the main event, the actual main event, Endgame versus that rotator, Victor Soto. I knew this one would probably be a good one as well. Split decision, went the distance in favor of Endgame. I gotta say, I disagree. I really thought Victor had this one, but how many times can you be on the wrong end of a split decision in this sport? Victor has really felt that a couple of times. So I guess just real quick, we'll see if you guys agree or disagree with the decision. Craig, what do you think about the split decision in favor of Endgame?
As an Englishman who had just watched England lose to New Zealand in the rugby when this had all happened, I was very heavily favouring Rotator, but I think the judges got it right. I do think so. Endgame is just so well driven.
I was actually going to say Rotator for that one. I think what really made the difference in my mind, and this is kind of like a reoccurring theme for a lot of judges' decisions this year, is really kind of understanding, what season of BattleBots are we in? Because back in the day, there was a huge push for, what the active weapon does. And now it almost seems like we are allowing the break fist on face strategy to be a valid method of accumulating damage. The fact that Endgame's weapon went out so early almost seems to say they've lost their primary manipulator, which is supposed to be the thing that does things to the other robot. That automatically, in my mind, if I'm thinking back like 2000 or not 2000, the season 2 or season 3, that puts a heavy favor on Rotator. And while not a lot of visible damage was done, there is primary weapon aggression. Now, I don't want to be a judge. I'm not asking to be a judge. This is why I don't want to be a judge.
See, I want to be a judge. I want that responsibility. I would totally do we're split decision here, the three of us. We all think something different. So I think it would be fun. Like I said, I don't envy their role at all. I would love to do it just one time to say that I did, and hope that it's a fight that I don't get my social media blown up afterwards. But I can only imagine here the tapings, they've happened, and all is good in the world. But then, however many months later, now it's like, oh crap, that episode's coming up. And you're like, okay, we're going to just silence my phone, put that away, because I know exactly what's coming up here in the next 5 minutes. It's just, I feel bad for anybody, like you, Craig. And, Craig, real quick, did you call or text or message Jake after your episode last week and be like, hey, how do you handle this?
Oh, no, I'm used to it. It's not a problem. It's like if I had all this stuff, I trended on Twitter with hate back in Robot Wars, so it's not an issue. I'm fine with it. So,
I think if he doesn't have a dead fox on his car, he's doing pretty well.
I think it's a step up. So yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So our 4 fights to start the next episode, because next episode is the finale. They cram it all into one, which is crazy. So we have Ribot Black Dragon. Then we have Sawblaze, Tantrum, Shatter versus Endgame. That one I think is going to be probably a sleeper for a really good fight as far as just how each one approaches the other. And then the main event, we skipped it so we could talk about it now. Hydra versus Whiplash. I don't care who you are, what generation, like everything about this fight just looks so good on paper. I want it to live up to the hype, even if it's just me hyping it up, but I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in that. But I think the driving skills between these two, it's if anybody can, derail Hydra, it's got to be Matty V and Whiplash right now, just because of what he was able to do to Valkyrie tonight. And I know we're talking completely different bots, but just you guys were talking about the balls on Matty V and going after a spinning Valkyrie like that. I mean, what do you think he's going to do against Hydra?
I remember seeing this in the lineup, and Matt kind of panicking because what's really funny is that JMO, myself, and Whiplash and Endgame and Uppercut, we're all in this bottom corner together. And Matt was walking past me, and I was like, "How you feel?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna hit the ceiling." I was like, "I fought flippers in England for decades. That's all I've fought in England for 10 years. There's a ever so slight delay from when you drive over the flipper and the actual flipper going off. So if you're quick enough, you can just drive over them, and then you can whack that arm back and hit them." So I remember having that conversation with him. I was like, and if anybody's got the balls or the skill to actually pull off that kind of maneuver, it's going to be Matt Vasquez. So I actually didn't see this fight. I know the outcome, but I didn't see the fight. So I don't know if he managed to do that. So that's what I thought he would do. And I thought if he could pull something like that off, he'd miss a bunch of times. Maybe he'd break his weapon and Whiplash wins it. That's how I felt it might go.
I was just as curious to see what the Vasquez family would do. I mean, thinking about Hydra's fights, I think one thing that they have not had to do so far is really fight a wedge control bot. In that, to distinguish between all their, dominating victories this year. So I think this presents a challenge for them as well, because their idea of the control good driving is a lot of this point and shoot sort of thing. I turn, I face you. And that only works if you have the dominant ground control. If you can basically mitigate a head-on attack, you will win. But what if you fought a robot which had a wedge that could be lower? And I think Whiplash potentially has this ability. They have way more attachments than they had in the previous season. They have stuff we haven't even seen yet on TV. Would they use one of those things? And that their lifter by default is way low. They're lower than us, actually. They got underneath us in the very beginning. And after that, we never let them do that again. But could they do it? I think that there's a strong chance that they can probably get underneath Hydra at least once. And maybe we'll see something different than the other outcomes.
Yeah, this fight, like I said, very excited about it. This could be better than the actual finale we get, but very excited, very bittersweet as we approach the season finale of a very competitive BattleBots, and the finale for Red Square, Blue Square, which bittersweet also. Hopefully we come back for season 2. We want season 2 of Red Square, Blue Square, but hey, who better to have on for the second to last episode? A dozen of these in the books now than JMO, Jameson Go, and Craig Danby. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Season finale next week, Discovery, 8/7 Central, and then Red Square, Blue Square sometime after that. But it's going to be a good one. So we'll see you guys next time.